It's great to be here and be able to share something of what we do. I'm representing here FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, but I work for the Global Forum on Agricultural Research, which is based in FAO. And we, both FAO and GFAR are members of the GODAN Secretariat, the Global Open Data in Agriculture, for Agriculture and Nutrition. I'm going to just give a very quick overview of what FAO and GODAN do. Just really a bird's view, because it's not, if I go too much into details, I would have to cover years of work on vocabularies and glossaries, etc. I just wanted to give a very short overview of what we do in FAO and in GODAN. And then I'm going to focus on the last effort that is under the GODAN umbrella and where FAO is responsible, which is a global map of data standards for food and agriculture. So this is, okay, with this, it looks like I'm bringing you back, like we've spoken about ontologies, URIs, sparkle queries, advanced models and relations. And here, what I'm giving you here is a list of basically simple taxonomies, mostly available as PDFs, or if you're lucky, through an HTML interface where you can search. But I think these things still have value for the Internet of Foods, because what you have here is agreed lists, agreed classifications built over the years by experts. So even if they don't have URIs, it's not so difficult technically to give them URIs and use them, but they are agreed concepts with definitions, and some of these are also regulatory, if not really mandatory, but for the countries that give data to FAO. I mean, most of these, like the commodity lists, the classification of products, these are standards that are used. We also have something that's a little more meaningful, a little more linked data. So I guess all of you know AgroVoc. It's a thesaurus. It's linked data. It's huge. It's also mapped to a lot of other vocabularies, and it's now part of the GACS, which Tom is going to present right after me. We also have the geopolitical ontology. The geopolitical ontology is also linked data. It's linked to a lot of other vocabularies. These are the only two real linked data vocabularies that we have in FAO. About GODAN, I don't know how many of you know GODAN. I hope all of you do. Very quickly, it was started in 2013. It was part of the G8 International Conference on Open Data for Agriculture, and it's mostly focused on high-level advocacy. High-level advocacy to convince governments and industry to basically open up data. Currently, it has around 400 partners from different types of constituencies. So since it's high-level advocacy, you may think that it doesn't do anything in terms of semantics. Actually, it has mechanisms to facilitate the work on opening up data and so on semantics. One of the mechanisms is we have a partnership with the Research Data Alliance. I guess many of you know what the Research Data Alliance is. We are trying to create a working group. We already have an interest group for agricultural data interoperability, in which probably most of you would be interested in participating. They're working on interoperability of data for food and agriculture. And now we are proposing a new working group, which is called Agri-Semantics. And this group is not so much about individual ontologies. It's a group that will discuss on the need for a common infrastructure for semantics, what we need in terms of hardware, software, if we need a common infrastructure, APIs, to better use, also better build ontologies and vocabularies for food and agriculture. And the other mechanism is having donors fund individual projects. Now, DFID, the UK Department for International Development, which is one of the founders of GODAN, is funding a project that's called GODAN Action. One of the main deliverables of this project, what they want us to do, is build a global map of standards, existing data standards, not any standard, data standards for food and agriculture, because they want to have an overview of what is there, what exists, what is available, and also to do also a gap analysis, what is missing, which are the domains that are better covered. And yes, this project has a lot of partners. It's a really collaborative effort. Besides the 8 partners in the GODAN Action Project, which are Altera Wageningen, CTA, FAO, GFAR, the Open Data Institute, the Institute for Development Studies, the Land Portal, and Agrono, which is a small SME. We also have the collaboration of partners that are not in the project. But I don't know how many of you know the AgroPortal. The AgroPortal was a very important resource for us in this work, in monitoring what is there, ontologies and vocabularies. And of course, behind the AgroPortal, there are the University of Montpellier and the Stanford University, and also INRA is sponsoring and actively promoting the AgroPortal. So all of these partners together are now building this global map of existing standards. How do we want to do it? First of all, we don't want to duplicate. There were already a few, actually very few, databases of standards. We didn't want to start from something new. We wanted to involve as many experts as possible, so anybody who wants to include a new standard. For standard, we need anything. As you can see here, we don't limit ourselves to ontologies. It's actually anything that helps manage data with agreed classifications, even code lists, even something that the industry uses, like messaging standards, when you have a sale of a product, anything that you use in the management of data regarding food and agriculture. And also the coverage had to be very broad. It's not just agronomy, it's everything that's related to natural resources, also to the food value chain, and everything that's related to food and agriculture, even neighboring disciplines like environment and climate. We were requested actually to give an open data angle to this global map of standards. So we had to also describe and collect information about the formats of these vocabularies, if they are served by APIs, if they are mapped to other existing standards, what type of licensing they have. So all things that are very relevant to how open they are. And the database had to be built for gap analysis, to do some type of gap analysis afterwards. The first challenge was the idea of not duplicating. So what we found that was already there was the vast catalog of standards. It's a catalog of metadata about existing standards of any type. And there was the AgroPortal repository of ontologies, which is really different as a concept, because it's focused on ontologies, it stores the whole content of the ontologies, and therefore it can build advanced services based on the semantics of the ontologies, while the rest was just a metadata catalog. But the rest was closer to what we wanted to achieve, because we just wanted to give an overview of what was there, so metadata was enough. The AgroPortal, on the other hand, could not just adjust to the needs of the global map of standards. So we decided, in this case, it doesn't make sense to merge just because we don't want to duplicate efforts. Those things are different, and for these different audiences. What we did is we established a mechanism by which we synchronize the essential metadata from the AgroPortal to the global map of standards. And so whenever a standard is in the form of an ontology, we give a link to upload it to the AgroPortal, and the metadata are shared between the two systems. This is really basic for hardcore ontologists who have bigger challenges. This was not really a huge challenge in terms of ontological organization of the database. There are already a lot of existing vocabularies to describe vocabularies, so we use them, and we aligned the model between the VEST registry and the AgroPortal. Some more work had to be done to agree on metadata for the gap analysis. So we had to agree what kind of assessment do we run, what metadata do we use to assess the standards, and then run a gap analysis. And we based this on existing exercises that have already been done. One is the exercise by the UK government, Open Standards Board. That's really assessment of open standards. So we got a lot of criteria from there. And the other one is the ODI Open Data Certificates. Those are for open data, but most of the criteria are really applicable also to vocabularies. And we organized this metadata under 4 main categories. So the gap analysis will be run in terms of fitness to purpose, adoption, usability, and openness. Another bigger challenge, how do we organize this? We wanted to give an overview of what standards are available or missing in certain domains, but which domains, how broad do we want to go, and which list of domains do we use? There is no standard anywhere of a standard list of domains that pertain to food and agriculture. So we started from existing classifications here and there, FAO, USDA, and we drew an initial list of domains. For data types, the same. We wanted to go deeper than just domains and see what data types do you describe with standards and vocabularies, and understand which types of data were not well covered, there were no standards for. This classification here was much easier by vocabulary type. There are agreed lists. We used the Dublin Core list of KOS types, and we added some more that we needed. This is what we have now. I have to say, it's not really representative. The whole structure is there. We started asking experts to put standards there. We built on the standards that were already in the Agro portal and some that were already in the West Registry. It doesn't really represent what is existing. We still need people to add whatever they know exists. But what you can see here is that there are certain areas, certain domains that are clearly better covered. Like plant sciences, so far, are the ones that have the more standards. That's also because we imported, of course, from the Agro portal. But also the natural resources like soil data, land data, forest, it's also decently covered. We also have food, which is, I think it's because we didn't really put there whatever exists. So it doesn't seem to be really well covered. But I'm sure if all the people who know about standards for food, data standards, add their standards, it will be much bigger than the others, probably. So in order for this map of standards to be really representative, I would ask everybody who knows about a standard, data standard, any type, thesaurus, ontology, code list, anything, to add it here. It's just sort of a place where all of us who are working on these things can go and see what the others are doing. It's a matter of knowing what exists, also for not duplicating efforts and not doing new things, the same thing again, and also to give us feedback on the way we organize and categorize the standards. So this is the latest thing that we did between FAO and GODAN. Thank you.